Good afternoon. This year is Langston Hughes's 100th birthday. The students, staff, the larger Wadley community are pleased to have as our guest today the celebrated artist, word warrior, Mr. Abiodun Oyewole.
How's everybody feel? You know, I feel really bad when people get the giggles and they start feeling like they want to laugh about whatever and they can't seem to control that. I really hated the fact that the guys had to be asked out. But it's one thing I do know, that without discipline, and this is just a word to all of you, without discipline we're not going to get very far. And I think everybody here knows that you got to employ some discipline. And Lord knows I love to laugh. I mean, when I was maybe in a teenager, I'd laugh and roll on the floor and just be silly, just get real stupid, because sometimes the giggles just takes over like that and you just get caught up in the moment. But we really do need some discipline. The one thing that I do want to say about Wadley, this whole area has a fantastic history, and the history is so deep. I really hope that you all take time out to just study the history of Harlem, especially as it pertains to Wadley. This whole area, this whole school has got a fantastic history. Harlem has always been a place where people all over the world have looked to people in Harlem for examples on how to be. This has been the place that set the tone, the style, the flavor, the actual impetus for us living. When I first came to Harlem when I was a kid, I used to come, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio originally, and my family moved to Queens, and we would go to church in Harlem. We would go to church on 108th Street between Manhattan Avenue and Central Park West. And we would ride through the streets of Harlem. Everybody looked clean and cool. I used to think that the folks owned all the buildings, owned all the cars. I mean, I could not imagine that folks are paying rent. I just felt we owned everything because we looked like we owned everything. And that spirit, that mecca of culture that this place represented, somehow is fading. We know there are a lot of white folks moving in now, and they're trying to integrate and try to get that flavor, and they're trying to eat at Sylvia's and get the soul in their system. But the reality is this is still a very serious black place, and we need to recognize that black is still very beautiful. The minute that I see Angie Stone, I'm going to give her a big, big, big hug, because she talks about loving the brothers no matter what condition they're in. And you're talking about all the brothers, because all the brothers ain't going to college, all the brothers ain't got the 9-to-5s and doing the right thing. Some of the brothers are on crack, some of the brothers in the joint. We know that scene. And I'm just very happy that a sister has written a poem or written a song that kind of celebrates all of the brothers. You all agree? You think that's a nice poem? That's a nice song? I think it's very important. Anyway, I'm here and I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'm really honored that I'm here under a Langston Hughes kind of a presentation, because Langston Hughes was a fantastic poet. Raise your hand if you are familiar with any Langston Hughes poetry. Okay, what poem are you familiar with that you can recall the title of or the line from?
Too Blue.
Too Blue? Okay, yeah, that's a serious piece too, because we stay too blue quite often. And everybody's familiar with Mother to Son. Negro Speaks of Rivers. Never heard Negro Speaks of Rivers? If you heard that before, raise your hand. Well, all right. Just in honor of Langston Hughes, I usually open up with a little pledge rap, but because Langston Hughes would be 100 years old if he were living today, let's open up with a Langston Hughes piece, just so that we can kind of get the flavor. And I need your help. Black folks, you got to be the choir. You know the deal. You can't sit up here and just be constipated and dead and look at me like, what is he going to do? We got to share. Just repeat this after me. I've known rivers.
I've known rivers,
ancient dusky rivers, ancient dusky rivers, and my soul has grown deep like the river, the river, the river, and my soul has grown deep like the river, the river, the river. I've known rivers older than the flow of human blood and human veins. I've known rivers ancient as the world. I've known rivers, ancient dusky rivers, and my soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, I've known rivers, ancient dusky rivers, ancient dusky rivers, and my soul has grown deep like the river, the river, the river, and my soul has grown deep like the river, the river, the river. Give yourselves a nice hand. That was nice. You see, the reason I really want to do that, first of all, it's a history piece. It tells you that Langston Hughes knew in his poetry right away that we were here before time got started, that black folks were here at the beginning of time. You know, I was here listening to a Rutgers president, I forget his name, but he's the president of Rutgers presently. He's resigning from the school. He's going to teach. They said, what are you going to do after you resign? He's going to teach. He needs to be put in a box, nail the box up and put him in the ground someplace, bury him alive, because he's stupid. The man said that black folks cannot function because we cannot take the test because we're genetically inferior to pass the test that the white folks create. Now, if you feel that you are genetically inferior, please raise your hand so I can stomp on you. I mean, can you imagine that folks are saying that in the year 2002? We are the parents of these folks who are trying to say we're inferior to them. All life got started from us. If you don't know that, and folks that are black and Puerto Rican and Dominican, you all are black too. Let's be honest. Let's be real about this. A lot of folks run around trying to be different colors, trying to be something other than what they really are. The African root is in us. Ain't nobody got to join the Ooga Booga crew. You ain't got to change your name. You ain't got to you got to run around wearing the dashiki all the time. You ain't got to get an afro. You don't have to braid your hair. You ain't got to put a bone in your nose. You ain't got to run around and say buwana buwana. You are African in the flavor of your existence. And that's one reason why I wanted us to do that piece, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. Now, that poem is called The Negro Speaks of Rivers because during the time that Langston Hughes wrote it, we were calling ourselves Negroes. But people are not named because other folks decide to give them a name. People are named after what? After the land they came from. There is no place called Negroa. There is no place called Negro nothing. This is a word that was put on us like so many other words, and we accept these words. We take these words and we put them into our system, and then we try to live up to these words. And you know what it's like? It's like somebody giving you a shoe that's size 6 when your feet are size 8. And you walk around with your feet hurting all the time. Bad attitude, curse all the time, mad all the time because the shoes on your feet are killing you. You are in a system that's killing you. When people ask me what I do, I'm a poet, yes, but I'm a teacher, and I work for the Board of Dead. I don't make any bones about that. We are all victims of the Board of Dead. This is not the Board of Ed. They're killing us. And folks love to kill us, and they love to throw dirt on us, because the system is not designed for us. So we're trying to find our way in a puff and spot, see Sally run, look at Dick and Jane system. And we're trying to become happy in that system, looking for some kind of happy meal at the end of our educational career that's going to last forever. It's embarrassing. We are giants, we are kings and queens, and all we got to do is start treating each other with a little bit more respect. I understand the relationship that brothers and sisters have, and when the brothers call each other dogs. I remember when brothers used to call each other God. That's the backwards spelling of dog. How do we get to dog? How do we get to praise somebody like Bow Wow? Next we're going to have a little girl on the scene called Little Earth. How do we get to praise somebody like Little Kim, who is a hoe, and everybody knows that? How do we get to praise that? What happened to that? What happened to our personal understanding of the greatness and the beauty of ourselves? Now I'm saying some things that I hope will spark some dialogue and conversation, because we don't want this to be one-sided. But at the same time, I want you to understand where I'm coming from and the fact that y'all are going to be there, because nobody here is Peter Pan or Tinker Bell. Everybody is going to grow up, whether you want to or not, and you're going to be held responsible for what you say. Somebody's going to walk up to you, whether it's your child or somebody else's child, and ask you to teach them something. And there's an expression that everyone here should know. If you know, teach. If you don't know, what? Learn. That's what life's all about. So, like, now, let me just break down some other things. I'm a member of a group called The Last Poets. And we were truly influenced by Langston Hughes because Langston Hughes was always a people poet. Let me give you a sample of The Last Poets. How many of you have ever heard of The Last Poets? Raise your hand if you heard of The Last Poets. Okay, the folks that knew me from last time I was here, thank you for remembering and caring. The fact is that we were a group that came out of the street. We came from the people. We didn't come from a university. We didn't come from some kind of lofty position or place that poets might roam and dare to speak. We came from the street. So we were dealing with the issues that were concerning us here in Harlem Harlem and Brooklyn and Queens and all the other places, what were some of the issues that we were concerned with? Drugs. Drugs has always been a major issue, because if you got an active-minded group of people, the best way to chill them out is to throw some drugs in the mix, and they'll chill themselves out. If you got a bunch of people that can think and read between the lines and above the lines and around the lines and know the whole circumstance of the situation that they're living in, the best thing to do is to chill them out with food and drugs. So we're going to have some restaurants, we're going to have McDonald's, Burger King, and everything else, anything they can imagine, and we'll have drugs, because that will keep you chill, that'll keep you stupid, and you will be no threat to anyone. So drugs was a major problem, and so writing poetry, I wanted to try to help black folks solve some of the problems. So somebody told me in order to write a poem about drugs, you had to be a drug addict. I did not want to hear that, because I'm not down with drugs. So I refuse to take drugs. I refuse to shoot a drug in my arm, because I love myself, and I don't like needles anyway, and I'm not down with that. But I wanted to get close to the situation, so we spent a night at a shooting gallery in Brooklyn. And I think I did this last year, but it's always good to do it for new folks. A shooting gallery back in those days was a place where junkies would go to shoot the drug in a healthy vein in their bodies, wherever the healthy vein was. If their arms were used up, then they go to their legs. If the leg was used up, they go to their neck. Well, in one case, this guy went to his penis, because it's the only place he had a healthy vein left. So just let you know to what extreme madness we were caught up in. But out of that experience, out of me watching all these sisters and brothers shooting up drugs for an entire night, the next morning, my partner and I freestyled the poem I'm sharing with you now. Day breaks, got the shakes, joint dripping, mind slipping, body aches. My Jones is down on me. Got an attitude, fighting bad, feeling sad, funeral sad, another 24-hour drag. Jim, I needs me some skag. Palm my brother's do-rag to call me a transparent thin bag. You see, because I'm strung out on that white witch, my timeless bitch, riding a white horse into my main vein. Damn, baby, I gotta kill this pain. Ooh, this pain is getting worse. Let me see how much dough this hoe got in her purse. She don't care. She's on welfare. I'ma steal her check and cop me a deck and deal me some stuff when the going gets rough. Where's my wine? Is that the kid here crying? Hey, shut up, kid. What you want the super to call the man and have me pull another bid? I don't know where your old man is. If he knows what I know, he's out getting his. Let me see what's happening on the corner today. Yeah, there's my man, brother Sweet Stuff Sam. Hey, Sam, can I get a play on a double tray so I can take off and lay? All right, woman, get up out of bed. You heard what I said. I want you to put the rope around your arm and heat the cooker. Then I want you to get your ass on the corner and play hooker. Ooh, I can feel that stuff now. That stuff is boss. I see that hoe on her white horse. Hey, baby, wait for me. I'm gonna be free, 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 free. Really? And that's the last line of the poem. Really? The fact is that, does that poem describe anything that's totally foreign to you? Does it sound like something that's happening today? Sounds like you've been in that poem before, like you've seen that circumstance, am I right? Very sad. And of course the do-rag is top notch, you know that. Pawn that brother's do-rag to cop me a transparent thin bag. Do-rag is all of that. They're gonna have suits with the do-rag very shortly. I'm sure of it. You can go buy your suit and get a do-rag to match. Because that's what time it is. That's how we affect change, y'all. How many white folks around here wearing baggy clothes? How many white folks are running around here trying to be like us? If we took the shoes out of the box and put the boxes on our feet, you'd have a white person next week doing the same thing. Because that's the kind of influence we have. We don't even know the influence we have. We are more powerful than the government could ever be. And they've created this perpetration of a major fraud with the 911. Don't anybody here suffer from fear and talk about some terrorists that's trying to get you? You've been terrorized all your lives. How many of you realize you've been terrorized all your lives? Raise your hand if you realize that. Now, if you don't realize that, means you've been walking dead for a long time. Because the truth of the matter is, if any of us right now go stand on any corner in any city throughout this country, and we stand in that corner a little too long, the cops are going to tell us to move on. And if we don't move on when they tell us, they're gonna see about why we're not moving. Yet you and I can go out to Long Island right now and see some white boys standing in the corner, the cops ain't saying nothing. How's Jabbo doing? How's your father doing? How's your mother doing? That's the kind of language they got for those kids. They're not asking us about parents. We don't have parents, as far as they're concerned. We're just waiting to go to jail. Now, how many of you are familiar with the Def Poetry Jam? All right, Def Poetry Jam is something that just started. It's just been, HBO just picked it up. They had 4 pilot shows, and my group, The Last Poets, was one of the groups that was on. One of the other shows was Sonia Sanchez. She was a featured, one of the older featured poets. Another one of the shows had Amiri Baraka as one of the featured poets, and another one of the shows had Nikki Giovanni as one of the featured elder poets. I was on Def Poetry Jam with my group, And it was very interesting because I did a poem I'm gonna do now for you. So you're gonna hear what HBO would not actually produce, all right? And I think you'll know why they wouldn't produce it. This country is full of lies, has been for a long time. And the truth hurts. Did anybody ever see that movie where they said, you can't handle the truth? Anybody, what was that movie where they said, you can't handle the truth? Minivana? No, it wasn't. A Few Good Men. A Few Good Men. Yeah, you can't handle the truth. That line is a direct line to them. Okay? I don't want to kill our time, but I want y'all to hear this piece if we got time. What kind of time are we talking about? All right. For those of you who are caught up with the idea of patriotism, I don't care if you were rooting for the Patriots or not, for those of you who are gagging yourself with the flag or allowing yourself to be caught up with the media blitz on how to become American now, for those of you that have remembered the StarSpangled Banner backwards, I want you to listen to this, because this is the piece that I did for Def Poetry Jam, and I knew before I did it that it was not going to be shown on television. And a number of people were upset with me because they know that I have a great relationship with young people. They said, well, you're a role model, Abiodun, and you should do something that the young people can see on television. I did what I did because it was necessary, and there were over 600 or 700 people down there at the Supper Club when I kicked this poem, and I knew they were going to give me some love, and that's what it was. And at the end, they wanted to protest HBO because they knew they weren't going to show it. But now I think if you just listen, and because this is, what is this called, Black History Month, and you know we're being chunked with a short month to talk about who we are, the fact is I think that you'll hear the history of our situation in this particular poem. It's called Reign of Terror. And reign is spelled R-A-I-N, not R-E-I-G-N, which means to reign over something. I'm talking about rain like the rain that falls out the clouds in the sky. America is a terrorist, killing the natives of the land. Killing and stealing has always been America's master plan. To control the earth and everything on it, to divide and conquer is all they wanted. America is a terrorist, killing the buffalo that roamed the plains. Killing and slaughtering animals was turned into a game. Giving blankets contaminated with smallpox to the natives who were here. The beginning of germ warfare, the beginning of white fear. No respect for the land, the trees, or the air we breathe. And Christianity was an excuse to bring others to their knees. America is a terrorist with a slave system in place to take away the humanity of a darker race, put people in chains and then beat them with whips, made them give up their names, those who survived the slave ships. America is a terrorist, chewing tobacco and eating swine, being mean and nasty to those who treated him kind. Take a pregnant black woman, cut her belly open, let the fetus fall out, stomp the baby in the ground. To instill fear is what that was all about. Gang up on a black man hanging from a tree, then cut him down and set him on fire for everyone to see. America is a terrorist with a howdy-doody grin, using the Bible to keep others in check while America commits all the sins. Thou shalt not kill is not part of an American dream, because to kill is a thrill they love to show on the TV screen. Romance the gun just for fun, drop a bomb just for charm. This is the American way, and all this talk about equality, justice, and peace spewing out of the mouths of these governmental beasts. But every time blacks tried to find a way to do for self, the American terrorist wasn't having it, and fear is all black folks felt. Rosewood was a town where blacks tried hard to thrive. White folks burned it down, and many blacks lost their lives. There was a town in Oklahoma called Black Wall Street, where blacks had homes, a bank, and lots of money, and stood strong on their own 2 feet. But now the whites nearby were jealous and just couldn't stand seeing blacks do so well. So they dropped 2 bombs on the town and created a living hell. America is a terrorist, feeding off racism and greed, not caring, not sharing, but enjoying watching people bleed. Every time Jack Johnson fought and beat a white boy in the ring, white mobs right here in New York City would kill blacks at random because a black man was boxing's king. Then all the wars we fought to try to win respect at home, but when the war was over, we were never treated like we belonged, but rather the subjects of experiments. At Tuskegee and other places for over 400 years, blacks have lived in fears of the vicious cruelty of the racists. Tried to march for justice and the civil right to be treated fair. Attacked by dogs, fire hoses, beaten by police, forced to live a life in total despair. Dropped the bomb bombed the church in Birmingham while the children were in Sunday school. Took the lives of 4 little girls. Yes, this terrorist has been just that cruel. American terrorism is like a virus that's homegrown and spreads across the planet too, selling guns and chemical weapons gift wrapped in red, white, and blue. Soldier boys selling guns for hard drugs in exchange. It should be obvious by now that this country is deranged, and yet we stand and pledge allegiance to a flag that brings lots of grief, and singing a war song every day is America's only belief. America is a terrorist, and no one wants to admit, and pointing the finger at others is the ironic part of it. Dropped a bomb in Philadelphia to wipe out an organization named MOVE, killed unarmed women and children because the police had something to prove, and all the Black Panthers who were trying to help their community wiped out by the FBI for trying to create black unity. Put drugs in the hood, set folks up for no good, kept unemployment high, education was laced with lies, turned the people against each other, made money more sacred than your mother, caused an avalanche of grief by trigger-happy police, and no place are you safe if you have a darker face. Henry Dumas, Amadou Diallo, Michael Griffin, Yusef Hawkins, Arthur Miller, Eleanor Bumpers, Anthony Baez, Emmett Till, James Byrd, just to name a few, died at the hands of American terrorists. No terrorism here is nothing new. And AIDS has become an epidemic all over the world where black people live. An evil virus created by mad scientists for people who only have love to give. The KKK, the Michigan militia, and the police from coast to coast are the real American terrorists, and the government is the host. So now America is ready to engage in World War III because what goes around has come around, but you can't kill what you can't see. On that note, I think I've said enough. Questions?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, my name is Richard Brown. I'm from Wiley, and I represent the senior class. And I would like to ask you, like, what are some of the things that you went through that, like, affect your life and makes you come the man who you are?
Well, first of all, I became a last poet after the killing of Dr. King. I was scheduled to be a doctor. Matter of fact, they used to call me Doc as a nickname when I was a kid because my mother was told, my son's going to be a doctor, my son's going to be a doctor. And so I was in medical school, and I was really working towards that. But when Dr. King got killed, now I couldn't have marched with Dr. King because I didn't believe in turning the other cheek. If you smack me in my face, I'm going to try to stomp you. But like at the same time, I respected the fact that this man was trying to use love as a major weapon to bring about some justice. And that had a great deal. But the men in my life, the music of my life, the people who have come to my assistance, I mean, there's so many folks that have helped me to become who I am. And I must also say, for the ladies' sake, I've gotten most of the wisdom that I have and that I've nurtured, I've gotten from women, because women represent that. They see women, because they can't walk in and just punch you in the face and knock you out. They have to use their minds, those that discover they have minds. And I've been able to get some of that information and some of that wisdom from them, and I've employed that in everything that I do. So the women in my life and the men in my life have been significant for my growth, and then the events that have taken place, like with Martin's death, really helped shape who I am.
And I would like to ask you, like, what poets or authors or writers that inspired you as a writer coming up as a young man?
Langston Hughes inspired me tremendously because he was a people's poet. He spoke a language you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what he was trying to say, you know, and I appreciated that. I also appreciate jazz, like John Coltrane, the saxophone, he was great, and Miles Davis playing the trumpet. I mean, all that music. Of course, the funk aspect, you know, from the Funkadelics and all the R&B, from the Miracles and the Temptations, all of that stuff had a lot to do with shaping the words and the language and the poetry that I write now. And then the fact that, you know, I love my people, and I can just walk down the street and pick up pieces of conversations, and we're always kicking poetry. Folks don't even know they're kicking poetry. They're just throwing metaphors around and similes and onomatopoeias and alliterations and don't even know. They're just having colorful conversation and not even aware of the genius that's coming out their mouth. But that's all the stuff that has excited me and inspired me to write.
Thank you.
Come on, y'all, don't be shy now. You know y'all got questions. I said a lot of things, and I said some things that were definitely inflammatory because I wanted y'all to be moved, and I really hope somebody is moved. I mean, maybe y'all are just dead. Maybe I killed you. You're dead? Bam, bam. I shot you down. I shot the sheriff.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Walker, and I'm also a senior here at Wiley. I just wanted to let you know that what you said it really touched home and stuff, because my life is a little shaky right now. But you make me look up. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful to see you a second time around. All of our lives, my brother, I want to say, have on shaky ground. But you know what? We have been able to rock with the shake because we know how to do that. Nobody else can better than we can. And just recognize that you come from a long strand of strength. And so anytime you feel weak, try to remember that you come from strength, and so the strength is there. So no matter what takes you down, what hurts you at the moment, you can heal yourself and you can rise above that, because there have been other folks that have gone through much, much worse, and they have come together and they have done something positive. So I just, and I'll even say this at the end of this thing, brother, if just to be in touch, I'll give you my phone number so we can be in touch. So anytime you need an extra dose of a boost of whatever, I'm there for you, man. And I appreciate the fact that you were listening last night on the TV too. Look at that, only the seniors. I guess they're the only ones qualified to ask questions? Oh, wow.
I want to ask you a few questions. My name is Rashard George, and you inspire me too.
Thank
I feel
you.
as a black brother. I want to know, like, how do you feel about, like, the white people? They giving us these tests. They so hard, and we ain't prepared for them in school.
Well, it's a game. The whole idea is to keep you dumb, to keep you feeling dumb, feel stupid about yourself. They don't want you to be smart. No matter how many white missionaries come through, oh, I want to really help you out. They're not really interested in helping you out. They want to help you down. The truth of the matter is that we have got to take the reins ourselves. You have got to make a concerted effort to be as smart as you can be. These tests were not designed for us. Everybody knows that. That's why that president at Rutgers University could say what he said. He knows that we don't live in a puff and spot world. We live in a Malik and Keisha and the Shakita. I mean, we have a whole nother world that's got flavor and rhythm. And it's like we had a poem I did on a Panther movie, Don't You Give Me No Broccoli and Tell Me It's Greens. They know they're about broccoli. We're about collard greens. They understand that. And you ain't gonna see collard greens on no test. You ain't gonna see nothing remotely close to collard greens. So they're not trying to relate to you. But what we've got to do, I hate to say it, you got to do the same thing that your ancestors did, that your grandparents did. You got to be schizophrenic. You got to learn that man's system. You got to learn all of that stupid stuff and use it to get to where you want to go, but never lose sight of yourself. Let me give you an example. My son, I put him in prep school because I wanted him to have a chance to go to an Ivy League college because that's what he wanted to do. Now, he was born Obadele, right? So he's got an African name, Obadele, which means the king has arrived. So that kind of set him off so he wouldn't necessarily fall into being a white boy because he already got an African name. And so on the way up to the school, the teacher, the counselor on the bus said that when you get to the prep school, you're going to have to vote for the president for your particular class. So my son is sitting in the back of the bus in the Rosa Parks section, and he raised his hand. And so the counselor says, and when he won Oba, and he says, I'll be the president. And all the white boys turned around and said, he'll be the president. I love that. That's perfect. There was no voting. He just said, I'll be the president. And he just took over. That's how we got to be. We got to take charge. Because these people are children. They don't know what to do. They are setting us up for failure, making us feel bad, and you're looking forward to maybe being a manager for McDonald's. There ain't none of that working. None of that's working. And you have got to go the extra mile, get the tutoring, whatever you have, just to understand this silly system that they want you to learn. Because they're going to say you're not smart if you don't know the system, and that's not true. You are smart, but we've got to be smarter. It's no different than when I was a kid. My mother said you got to be twice as better than them. It still stands.
One more question. I want to know which one of them poems was your favorite.
Which one of the poems?
Langston Hughes.
Of Langston Hughes? My favorite poem by Langston Hughes, I would have to say, is Negro Speaks of Rivers.
All right,
Yes.
let me just shake your hand.
All right, man. Thank you,
All
my
right.
brother. Yes, ma'am. I'm so glad a sister love has asked me a question.
I'm Akira Green in
Nakira?
Akira Green
Akira Green,
in 8th grade.
8th grade.
And I would like to know, what was the worst thing you ever saw that a white man have done to the black man?
The worst thing I ever seen that a white man had done was the dragging of James Byrd. I could not get to that, and that happened just 3 years ago. James Byrd was coming off from work, and he decided to stop and have a little drink before he went home. And some white people who had already been drinking, 3 white men, decided they were going to have fun with a black man. And they tied him up feet first to the back of their pickup truck. And they drove at about 80 miles per hour for about 2 to 3 miles. And all of his body parts were strewn over a 3-mile radius. And that was the worst thing. I mean, his head was here, his arm was here. It was sick. The only thing that was left to on the chain, was his feet that was still on the chain of the back of that pickup truck. I could not imagine that a person could be that cruel to another. Even if you don't like somebody, that's gone beyond. That's way out. And there have been other things that I've seen pictures of, like the hanging and the burnings of brothers, and the pictures of seeing the white people standing around. Matter of fact, the word picnic, that word picnic is a word that means pick a nigga to hang him. We say picnic. I'm going to have a picnic on Sunday. We're going to Bear Mountain, eat some collard greens and chicken, a potato salad. They say we have a picnic. We're going to pick a nigga and hang him. and we're gonna stand around and take pictures, and then we're gonna cut him down and take his penis and cut it off and put it in a jar with formaldehyde and put it up on top of a mantle. Knowing those stories makes me sick, but seeing what they did to James Byrd just 3 years ago probably was the top. That was the tip of the iceberg. We have sick people here.
And one more question: what advice would you leave us?
There's only one advice that I would give you, and I give you this every day of your life. We gotta love each other. And if you're around some other brothers and sisters that look like you and come from the same area that and you can't stand them, then we got to use that old adage: if you don't have nothing good to say, don't say anything. Because we have too many back and forth conversations with this and that, and I don't like you, and so your hair's so short I can read your mind. We be cracking all the time, and you know, and the thing about it, like the biggest thing that just happened was like Nas and Jay-Z had this little back and forth type of thing on wax on CD, and everybody said, "Man, you heard what Jay-Z said, man? You heard what Nas said about you?" And then to go back, it ain't nothing but the dozens. We need to, and without being corny, without being dead, we need to find the juice enough to love each other with a passion and do something together. Make little projects, do something that's going to make us feel good, because we got all of the answers creatively. Creatively, we have all the answers, but we don't utilize the genius that we've got, unfortunately, as much as we should. But that's my answer. We've got to find a way to love each other and work together, and until that happens, we are just sitting ducks waiting for the slaughter.
All right, thank you.
That's it?
Unfortunately, we're going to have to conclude, but I'd like to just give you something, my brother. You've inspired me. This is a very short piece just because you're black. Just because you're black. You say you don't want to die because I don't want to die because. You say you don't want to die because there's no cause to die for. Now, what would cause you to say that? Is it because you have a good job and a home in the suburbs? Or is it because you wear pink and yellows, causing all the sisters to scream from a cause unknown? Just because you seem to be satisfied, that's no cause to forget who is the cause of black people being exploited and oppressed. Malcolm, Denmark, Martin all died because they knew what was the cause causing all of us to be exploited and oppressed. I'm going to stop right there because I hope that the brothers and sisters who have been privileged to hear you today will come to the library and hear some of that work. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you. That was a piece. Now, he just blew my mind because that's a piece on our very, very first album, which has, to date, I can tell you, have sold 75 million copies. And ask me if I got $75 million? No. But the 75 million copies are floating around the world. And he remembered that piece. And I mean, God, the piece is like, I wrote that when I was 18 years old. I mean, that's outrageous. I thank you for that, Paul.
Thank you, bro.
I want to thank you all, too, for being cool. And also, pull the coats to your young brothers that got kicked out, because, see, that kind of...